So we are back here with Covillen. We're ready to talk some Duel Links, and we came up with a couple of great topics for tonight. So the first thing we wanted to talk about is just within the game improvements that we would like to see, and ways that we think that we can improve like player experience and stuff like that. So I'll go first on this topic, and I don't have a
Okay.
ton, but I think it'll be a really interesting conversation because I think you might have different perspective. Um,
hmm
I'm probably too competitive in some ways, like throughout my whole life, and I really do like the game of Duel Links. I think it's been around for a long time. I think it does a lot of things right. Obviously, it's not perfect, but
hmm
like any game these days, you think about this lasting this long, like you're doing something right. When I think about like the really competitive scene, like I think the meta is fairly balanced. Like there's usually at least 5 to 10 decks that you're going to play against often,
hmm
which is not just like you're playing the same deck over and over and just it kills the experience, which I think is the big thing there. I think they're all different types of decks as far as like they do a really good job with the different boxes that get released of going back and forth between fusion monsters being popular to synchro monsters, pendulum monsters, exceeds, link. Like they really mix it up so it's not just like because Link is like the newest to the actual game of Yu-Gi-Oh that like it's not the only thing. It's varies in the way that those different types of things can work together. I really like,
hmm
and I think the competitive structure is decent. But we're not here to talk about what I like. So the improvements there, all of that to say, my improvements would be more like on the competitive side. I think it's pretty good, but I think that there can be more ways to maybe go around rankings. So like for
hmm
me, if I'm hitting King of Games and then the next month I get demoted down to like Platinum 6, I think it is,
hmm
and then up to just through the Legend rankings, that doesn't always take a ton of games if I'm like going all out with the best deck I can find. And for me
hmm
personally, like when I hit King of Games, I don't want to play ranked anymore. Like you're not getting a reward. The only reward you're getting is like the rewards you get for winning duels.
hmm
Um, which is like you'll get like 5 gems like every 5 wins or something, which is just a waste of time in my opinion. When you see of
hmm
like how much getting packs actually cost. So I guess it's like a good problem to have in some ways. That would be the first one. And I think like more tournaments built into the game, even if it was like a weekly tournament. I know that like there are sites that do them, and I think I'm gonna start trying to compete there for
hmm
just like being able to provide more content there and like really challenge myself against like the absolute top players. But just having like basically with the KC Cup like once a quarter basically. Not really too often. I know there's some other smaller things that happen, but like that's really where my goals are as a player, just trying to get to that absolute top tier.
hmm
So getting able to do those things more, and then I think I like the balance for the most part about like the way you get cards, right? Like you buy packs. I think they're look, most people spend a little bit of money or if in the competitive scene, but like I don't think it's pay to win. We talked about this a little last time. I think it's pay to compete. Like you can have the best deck and just lose over and over if you don't really understand how to play it. So that skill component is really necessary. But I do
hmm
think like there could be pack rewards, right? If we're talking about like if you get to King of Games, like you could get a reward of 5 packs from a box of your choice or something like that. Like a way to really tie it in so it's not purely gems and other small rewards. Like if you log in 5 days in a row, you get a pack or like things like that to really balance it. I
hmm
think could be interesting. And then the last thing I'll mention before I'd love to hear your take on my thoughts here, but I think they do this in Master Duel the few times that I played it. Like if there's a lot of UR cards that are not like particularly valuable. Like if
hmm
you were to get gems for 50, not gems, the stones for them, like 50 URs, like you should be able to get like a dream ticket out of them because in reality, like if you're opening boxes over and over and just getting UR cards that are that level of rarity, like and there's nothing
hmm
for them, it kind of devalues that ranking like as of card in total.
hmm
So even if it were to get like 40, 50 of the stones or something like that to do it, I think having access to the dream tickets where you can get one of any card you want, I think would help players out a little bit without making it too accessible either.
hmm
And those are my thoughts in a nutshell in one long breath. So what do you think?
Okay. Um, so let's start with the King of Games. And so there's a couple of ideas that I have. So I think once you hit King of Games, then and here's just my idea. is that now you're playing other King of Games players. So now I think your matches should be worth something.
Yeah,
So maybe
exactly.
5 gems a match, or maybe every 5 consecutive wins you get like 50 or 100 gems.
Yeah,
Or we can make it more competitive at this point, depending on how many gems you have. Maybe you should be able to wager, hey, against another player, I bet you like 100 gems on
yeah,
this game right here. That would make it more interesting at that point and give people, I wouldn't say, more of an incentive to continue playing after
yeah.
King of Games.
You have
Because
nothing to lose
again,
right now. Yeah,
yeah, you have nothing to lose. I mean, and little to gain. And honestly, 5 gems here and there. I mean, if
I'd
you
rather
really
do
want to
something else
grind
with
it
my
out,
free time. Like, quite
yeah,
honestly.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I think like some mechanic like that, that would be, well, that would be first of all a good driver for people to want to compete to get King of Games,
Yeah,
because then you can kind of make it like, okay, here's where the real money starts, because you can actually
yeah,
start, depending on how many consecutive games or what mechanic you want to implement into that. If you want to make, placing or betting gems,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people would be into, betting gems. And here's the thing, I don't think a lot of people would quit. You know what I mean? They would
No,
finish out the
unless the
game.
duel is completely lost. Like, yeah,
Yeah, unless the duel is completely lost, because I know that some people will quit the game because you're like, oh, okay, all right, I'm not going to win this one, or I don't think I'm going to win this one.
very early. Yeah,
Right. And so people will stay in the game to see, okay, is it completely lost? Can I really, strategize to try to bring this match back?
yeah,
So you bring up a good point right there with hitting King of Games, like you don't have anything to lose. And then there should be, you could do packs also. So packs would be good too, but yes, at least some incentive to continue playing, and not just be like King of Games, all right, I'm done until like, next month
yeah.
type deal.
I mean, I like, and other people do, like, when you hit it, like, then you'll start deck testing of just like, hey, I wonder if I try this out. Like, and it's
Hmm.
good to get there. It's good to be able to do that. But at the same time, like, if you're playing against people that are deck testing over and over with just wacky decks, like, you're not having fun either. Like, the most fun that, most people have in the game is having a competitive duel. And I'd rather have a competitive duel against a really good player and lose than just like, like you were mentioning, like get 2 turns in and the other person's fooling around and they surrender. Like, I don't personally enjoy that.
Right.
So yeah, having something on the line in one shape or form, and I think the wagering is a really good idea.
And then, so what was the other thing that you mentioned? Sorry, that one actually captured my whole
Yeah.
attention.
I think the other big ones we talked about the packs. I also mentioned like in-game tournaments would be cool, even if it's
Yes,
like a
yes.
an afternoon type of thing, like on a Friday afternoon or like one day of the week type of thing. That was another.
Yeah. So no, I think that they should do more KC Cup style tournaments in game, because I think a lot of people for the most part look forward to the KC Cup, and it's like, what is it, what, once a quarter, so
Yeah,
once like every 3 months or whatnot.
yeah,
So I think that they should implement more tournaments, maybe, and I brought this up a couple times, maybe, do a legacy dual tournament,
yeah.
um, and maybe, I want to say, some of the modes that we play, maybe hold
Limited time
tournaments in.
ones. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
hold tournaments in those, and just to keep people playing. Because I think like after the KC Cup, a lot of people are like, okay, like, all right, we don't have another
get a
tournament for
little
the next
burnt
three
out.
months.
Yeah, like
Yeah, they, get a little burnt out and maybe get discouraged, because there's not really anything to kind of compete in. So
yeah,
having more stuff to compete in, I think would be a very good um, um, option
yeah.
for adding more content and more enjoyable playable time on Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links.
Cool. And then the last thing there was about the UR cards and kind of the trade-ins and getting the gems to like on Master Duel, where if you have, I don't remember the number exactly, but if you have a certain number of gems, you can just get any UR card like within the game. Um, I know when I'm
Right.
building decks right now, like I'll have to go through like so many packs to get one UR card from an old box that I'm trying to get, and I'm like, oh, this is such a waste of gems. Like
Yeah.
it makes
Yeah.
you not want to get the deck at that point.
Yeah. And so I think there should be a way to actually craft to actually get certain cards. So as of right now, you can basically trade in like all your extra cards to get like, what is it, gold
Yeah,
and stones and whatnot. But I think there should be a way to actually craft a certain amount of cards to turn into gems or to turn into certain
Yeah,
cards.
exactly.
And honestly, I think that would make the game a lot more interesting because I think there's a lot of trash cards that you get
Oh
that
yeah,
you're okay.
yeah,
You're
without
not
a
going to
doubt.
use that. You know what I mean? And so having to collect all your trash to turn it in for one good card, like I'm totally down for that. So I think that's something they should implement. Hopefully, they'll implement it in the future. I
I've
think I've
heard
emailed
rumors
them
of it.
about that.
I've heard rumors
Yeah,
of it coming up soon. So maybe we're breaking news here. You never know.
yeah. You
Unofficially.
never know.
But even if it's not like I understand why they wouldn't want to make it too accessible where you can just like build any deck you want too easily. But even if it's
Hmm.
again something like you have to put in the like 50 URs to get like 50 unusable ones, in our book to get one dream ticket UR where you can get any card you want. Like that is a lot to turn in, but otherwise those cards that you're getting from whether it be like a limited time event or just like an old box that are just like way beyond usable by any means now. Like they don't have
Hmm.
value.
Yeah,
And it makes it so the cards just aren't modern in any way, and you're just stuck with like your in-game binder full of them. I don't know. It's a
right.
bad look, honestly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Cool. So that is enough of my thoughts. I'm very curious to hear yours.
Okay, all right. So I got some stuff that's totally different. And so and this is one thing that I've mentioned while streaming. I think there should be a timer. You should be able to see the other player's timer and how much time they have left to make a move, because that can actually play into the type of cards that you put into your deck.
Hmm.
So, for example, if you have a deck that actually takes, every turn they take a long time to, make their move, like Infernity, right?
Yep.
And for the most part, you can kind of, if you can kind of stall them out, you can start to put in trap cards where they have to choose what effect happens, right?
Yeah.
And then that actually goes on to their time. And so they have to select. And if they're using up their time making their moves, and then you trigger a trap card where they have to select an option A, B, or C, that actually plays into the strategy of trying to beat your opponent.
The game
And
within the game.
so,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so I would just like to see on the opponent side how much time they have left to move, because I think if they did that, you would start to see some different decks and where you're actually having to select what happens, when you attack or when a trap card is actually triggered. And I think a lot of people will actually start getting decked out or start getting timed out
Yeah.
um, by just that there. So I think that would be one good option to add. And the other one, and this is my last one, I would just like the effect to be highlighted that's currently in play on the card. So that
Yep.
so the text that that reads when this monster is flipped, da 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 da. So when that activation happens, that is highlighted. So when you're reading a card that has a lot of text,
Yeah.
okay, we're not talking about this effect. We're talking about this right here.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. I like both the ideas. I've to start off with the timing one. I've gone back and forth and like in my head about that one before, and I think it would add a really cool dynamic because there's a clear reason why the duels have to be timed because like it is part of the player experience. And like if I think about
Hmm.
how many duels I need to win to get to King of Games, like if people had unlimited time, like it just would kill the player experience. You'd be waiting all day just to get a single duel done.
Hmm.
And I've had duels. I had actually uploaded one to my channel recently where it was during the KC Cup. I was playing against a Salomon great player, and he was taking a while, and he was really starting to put the board together. And I was like, I should surrender, but like I feel like he's using a ton of time.
Hmm.
And he clears my board. He's just about to attack and finish, and he runs out of time. Like my jaw dropped. I was like, oh wow. I was like, I'm glad I didn't surrender. Now he probably could have played a little faster and attacked faster, but I think like if I knew that, I probably would have if I saw the timer, I don't know if I would have played differently, but I definitely would have like been leaning on the edge of my seat more of and just like counting down 3, 2, 1.
Right,
So
right.
I think even from an engagement perspective, like let alone like the styles would be much different too, but like I feel like if I don't know if it's my opponent's turn and I know they're playing a deck that takes a long time to work with, like sometimes I zone out a little bit and I zone back in when it's time to play, but I feel like I would watch a little closer if I saw that timer going off. So
Hmm.
um and about the text, yeah, there are so many cards, like so many cards. We see a lot of them in the metagame over and over, but at the same time, like no one's memorizing all of them. And then in this situation, to read it over and like I can read well, but sometimes like to really understand it and comprehend it in that situation and like given kind of the different like possibilities go like it's a lot. So I think it would be really helpful to see all of that specifically shown. Yeah. Um, because there are times where like players flipped over a card I've never seen or summoned one. I read it and like I choose not to activate something because of it, and then like they activate something, and I was like, that's not how I read it, but sure, it
Right,
worked that way. Um,
right.
Thankfully, it doesn't happen too often, but yeah, no, I think that would be a really really good ad.
Yeah, so that's for me, and just the player experience. It would be nice to be able to skip a lot of text and be like, okay, we're at this effect right here, or this is the
They're
next
so long,
effect
some of the effects.
after after this effect happened, because now cards have like three, four, five effects, and so it'd be nice to be able to track like, okay, this is what's going to happen next, even though it is for the most part, one after the other. Sometimes you get lost in the text. You're like, okay, let me start all over and read this. And like, oh, I got 10 seconds left.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and but even kind of looping into your first thought there, like it could help with timing too. Like it could speed up the games a little bit if I could jump to like, okay, I need to focus on this text specifically rather than reading all of the effects and then like making sure I understand. Like, yeah, I think it could speed up games, which I think could help people as well.
Yeah.
Cool.